You'd be surprised how much your story could mean to someone you've never met. A connection you hardly notice could be the closest you'll ever get. But if we could see those invisible connections, what would they reveal? Singular tales blended together, day by day distilled. Like an old whiskey, every story has a flavor, and every flavor has a story. One hand washes the other. There's so much to discover. The story of human partnership is one of collaboration and craftsmanship. It's hard to grasp it individually because it's bigger than you and it's bigger than me. But it's the story that keeps us connected. So why not make the most of that? We find meaning in what we believe in. Let's toast to that.
Hello, second time lucky. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Bridget Minamore, and I'll be hosting tonight. Before we get underway with this evening's poetry, which I'm very, very, very excited for, you'll all see in our little introduction from Bushmills, and I've received a glass on the way in. I haven't. Hint. To talk to you briefly about what you've been tasting, please can we give a warm welcome to the stage, brand ambassador from Bushmills, Evan Hirsch.
Thanks. So I was just going to talk really quickly about whiskey and poetry and how that kind of goes together, because actually a lot of people don't think about the fact that actually whiskey and poets have a lot in common. They both tell stories. In fact, whiskey actually tells a lot of the story about who made it and where it came from. When whiskey's made, when Bushmills made this whiskey, it came off the still and it was completely clear, no color whatsoever. But then it spent a minimum of 10 years in oak barrels, sort of moving in and out of the wood, breathing in the oak. And that's where all the flavor comes from. That's where this color comes from. And so I just thought we might just try a bit if everyone's all right with that. So if you just take like a quick smell, you might get some really nice sort of vanilla chocolate notes to it. And if you try it, you get some of those vanilla chocolate notes, a bit of oak coming through. You might not be big whiskey fans, but this is a really great way to experience a place and a culture, because this really tells a story of Ireland and who made it and where it came from. And that's what poetry is all about. So please enjoy your whiskey and enjoy some great stories tonight.
Thank you so much, Evan. I got not just one, but two, which is like a classic example of if you don't ask, you don't get. My mum would be very proud of me. Hello, welcome. We're going to have a poetry. I'm going to try and not talk too much, mostly because I had to take off one of my earrings for this, and I can, again, hear my mother just... If any of you have a Ghanaian mother, you know what I mean, but her seeing a picture of me with one earring, I think... I might get disowned sooner rather than later. But we are not here for the earrings or even for the whiskey, although the whiskey is a lovely, lovely cherry on top of the cake. We are here for the poetry. Are we excited? Good. Yeah, another round of applause, I think, for this evening and for poetry in the centre of London. You've all got here. You're all here with us. It's lovely to have you. I don't know if you've seen the streets, but it seems like the apocalypse is nigh. So this is a good way to go out, I think. On that cheery note, listen, it's the whiskey suits. No, it's not. It's just me. I'm going to introduce our very first poet of the evening. Oh, I've just seen our little faces up there. Our very first poet of the evening, Sophia. Sorry, I've just got the giggles. I'm going to stop and start again. Are we ready? Great. So our very first poet of the evening tonight is going to be Sophia Thakur. She is an award-winning, best-selling author and performance poet. She has been invited to share her captivating and intimate stories on the TEDx stage, at Glastonbury, on MTV, for Google, for Facebook, and over 50 universities across the world, which if you are anyone who has studied it, even just across the country, if you're someone like me who at university was desperate to see faces that looked even a little bit more like mine on my university courses, you will know how important and crucial and wonderful it is that Sophia and her work is there in those spaces. Her powerful and gentle messages on mental health, diversity, politics, self-expression, empowerment, women and well-being has led to participation at events organised by The Guardian, the Royal Family, Channel 4, the BBC, Viacom and Universal Music. Online, Sophia has cultivated a passionate following with over 1 million views and 40,000 subscribers across her social media channels. She's inspired millions of watchers to pick up a pen or type their own story, including many of my friends who, if I'm honest, it's been a struggle to get them to watch or read any poetry. So I'm especially grateful to her for that. Please can we give a really warm welcome to the stage to Sophia Thakur.
Thank you. That was lovely. Thanks so much for having me. I can actually tell you a few things about what poetry or poets and whiskey have in common, but it's not what I'm here for. And I'm recently sober as well. Recently trying to be. Then I came to this event and it's sponsored by like 2 different alcohol brands or something. Anyway, thank you for having me. Recently, my oldest brother took a wife. He didn't. He took a girlfriend. And I always find it funny when either of my brothers, I'm the youngest of 3, when either of them have a girlfriend, because I see this complete other side to them. Because you know how siblings generally are, or older brothers generally are. They can be a little bit mean until you get to a certain age when it's not awkward to be mean. And it's not awkward to be kind anymore. But the way he is with his girlfriend, I have never experienced that level of softness and kindness and just givingness of himself to like drive across the country to and fro. But it makes me realise that in pretty much most religions, love is synonymous with God in some kind of capacity. And when you see how love can transform a person, I think you come to understand why. What else really can do that? Drake has this lyric that goes, independent with the demeanour of an R&B singer. But for me, he could have said, independent with the desires of an R&B singer. She loves love, but retires every time it gets bitter. Now her fear of flying, all the floor coming quicker, is enough to stop her trying or even reconsider that love. It comes with the kit that can fix the same things that only love can split. But with wounds still wet, she waves a white flag and she promises her heart she'll never give it to her man. But then love, in all of its audacity, enters unwelcome with all of the tenacity. Like a punch from a cloud, it wraps my whole world, and now I can't imagine being anything but his girl. I think he's so clever. Love can make all of us see the world that much better, and I guess that is love's measure. So love me in extremes. Love me 12 roses for 12 days leading up to the date of our first kiss. Love me in playlists of songs that we sing together. Love me in French quotes on handwritten notes tucked into the pockets of my coat for me to find when I get home. Love me in poems in places that are almost as beautiful as you say I am to you. Love me in food, in trying something new just so it's ours. Love me in attachment for images. Love me in I'd love to see you in this dress tonight. Love me in surprise. Love me loud. Love me like I own your eyes in any crowd. Love me in the dance when my day has been too rough for words. Love me in the knowledge of where to kiss when it hurts. Pull up to pray, to cover my day with faith and takeaway, with flowers and Lucozade for long drives to listen to new albums. Love me as if your forever depends on it, as if living would hardly be if it wasn't with me. Love me until you have shed the earth's garden clean of all roses that you have picked for me. Love me until I never doubt why you do, until I get to experience so much of God through you. Love me until doubt becomes confident in its insignificance here, and the past panics at the news of its passing. Love me until old wounds wither, and old lovers slip from the cliffs of my mind. Love me until love is redefined by how I look in your eyes. I have died 10,000 deaths to my pride. I have dug my nails into the earth of my scalp, just to touch, just to remember the hem of love. And let those be the seeds that I use to fix our garden, because we promised on forever. Which means my dying to my old ways is my reasonable service to this. Like maternity surrendering her body to some kids, what else is better to surrender to than this? Love, the thing that when actioned has the potential to produce a child, to stop wars, to launch 10,000 ships, to pull forgiveness onto lips that haven't spoken in years. What better to wipe tears than the thing whose absence caused it? We all live constantly trying to get more of it, which is why I don't understand why these days we strive to die on our own sword, to lock compliments under a heavy tongue, or to hold on to anger long after the thing's done. We're so obsessed sometimes with being perceived as cold and hard, forgetting that the most natural posture of our heart, when it's forgiving, when it's soft, is more similar to God than anything else under this sun. So if we must die to anything like the sun, let it be the spirit of love, because it is the only thing that grows everything right back towards the light. What I realised during this lockdown, or one of our many zillion lockdowns in the UK, what I realised over the past year is that the squeaking, sorry, what am I doing wrong with that? I'm trying to avoid it, but ouch. Should I stop moving? Should I stay in one place? Okay. Yeah, what I realised during this lockdown, where there was so much grieving and we lost so much, whether it was people or time or experiences, we grieve sometimes in equal measure to how much we love. And I think the theme of the events, the Netflix events over the next few days or weekend, is storytelling. And storytelling is essentially just taking someone on a process to reach a conclusion you want them to reach. And what I also realised about grief is that it is its very own story. It is a process, it's not a feeling, it's something that you constantly re-meet. For people that I've lost during lockdown or to corona or cancer, whatever it might be, you grieve them again when you realise that that person's not going to be at your wedding, or they're not going to be there when your second child is born, or whatever it might be, but it's a process, it's a constant. They said, what is grief, if not love persevering? So what are tears, if not the memory of re-feeling your touch against my cheeks to in some way hold me? Push against me like a kiss, console me. I wish we never shook hands. I wish time never tried to teach a boy how to act. I wish time never tried to teach love how to act once a boy became a man. I would have collected enough kisses just to try to trade in for one more day, just to hear you say that actually things will be okay once the sun sets on the pain. But I can hardly believe the rain ever feels less wet. So in this ocean of regret, I look for reason. I try to rest on God's plan for the season. But how can love possess such a paradox that it promises to weave itself into the very flesh of our day to then pass away? And then that thread becomes grief shooting all over me. I hold sisters and strangers that much closer to me to compress the size of your absence, but your light is that it will never vanish, a headstone reflecting the planet's a supernova exit that no sky could ever manage. Heaven, hold him as he climbs the bowed necks of the clouds. Him with God is the only bit of sweetness that grief allows. And sometimes the taste that isn't bitter in nostalgia, so print every last memory of him on my raw flesh. When I hold the thought of him now, I feel how grief can undress and naked become remnants of whatever love was gracious enough to have left. I think we're all probably sick of hearing the zillion things we should have learnt during lockdown. I feel like lockdown 1, it was, pick up a language, pick up an instrument, banana cake, 5Ks in like 5 minutes or whatever people were doing. And then lockdown 2, people kind of changed the narrative. It was like, it's a pandemic. You don't need to be advancing your whole personality. Then I think in lockdown 3, everyone was just like, I don't want to hear from anyone about what to do. I'm going to do it my way. And I think what it definitely did for me in particular is it, in so many ways, redefined what I call valuable time, or redefined what I call, valuable time. And that also means, or that also kind of relates to valuable time with people. There's something about being in your own space for so long that suddenly makes you so selective when you do go out or have people in your space. I say that, but I'm also a hypocrite, because when the world first opened, I was everywhere. I was like a fox for like the first week. But it definitely did make me more considerate and I guess more ready to accept immortality in some way, and then in that, make the days count and make the hours count. 10,000 suns may set before you wake to your passion, but good God, I hope we do it in good timing. Each day we rise, we're a day closer to dying, and I don't say that to be cold or frightening, but time is literally fighting for us, to fight our fear of falling, or perhaps our fear of flying from our status quo, to let go of all the small that we've been shown is all we'll ever need to know, and grow into that beautiful unknown. That resentment that I was feeling towards tomorrow on a Tuesday when I wake up, I realised that could be nipped in the bud. I was harbouring so much dissatisfaction, and that's not even a thing to bottle up. I can't believe how comfortable we have become in paying our hours to something we don't love. Now, if we are purely about the bag, that's fine, you get that. But if on payday we still come home fried and dissatisfied, let's not forget that there are a million ways to get it. We might as well start from where our heart's headed. They say you won't work a day in your life if you love it. It's a lie. You will work twice as hard. But because you love it, it's a more bearable grind. More time I've cried into coming, I've lied into becoming, I've ridden into the role, I've lied into the riding of the roles that I've ridden. See, business doesn't change, it's an old man's religion. Keep one hand on the game and two hands on the vision. At times it feels impossible and oft times improbable, but all thoughts are possible. Technology constantly proves it. And if you're needing to secure a stable bag first, then do that. Don't feel bad for budgeting. Cut this, move that. Sorry, I can't do that. Sorry, I can't come out tonight. Trade sleep to prove that your passion is worth the grizzle. It burns way beyond the middle. It sits on your skin like a picture of you when you were little, when you were young enough to not know enough to stop you from grinning and glowing at the thought of one day growing up into your desire. You see, money set fire to the dreamer. But passion gives fire back to believers, and the sun shines first on those who stand. So rise and shine. You already glow in God's plan. It's really simple when you think about it. You were born with the upper hand. You were built with your purpose, your passion. You are already your stand. So imagine if you let fear or comfortability change that. In fact, picture yourself in a box, and no one can get in. You are trapped inside, and this thing is about to sink. Along what vein do you choose to think? If you only think along the vein of fear, freedom can't be anywhere near. You have to think along the vein of escape to move. Only thoughts of freedom can save you, and yes, it requires the brave you. Yes, you have to swallow your fears, but if you ever want to see the sky that's waiting for you on the other side, that's just what it is. So if I leave you with anything, think and live along the vein of your potential. List your assets and your passions, find out what they're meant for. Remember, the man that waits on tomorrow may never see tomorrow come. Our days are numbered, so don't stall on what you're meant to become. Just become. Like Sis said, it's looking like the apocalypse out there. So let's use our time wisely. Thank you so much for having me, and enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Keep the applause going for beautiful Sophia and her amazing work. I was going to stand up, but I might just sit because I've I've sat here and I'm committed, so I can't. Yeah, it's fine. We're here. It is the best. Like, I want to say view, but that feels a bit creepy. But you know what I mean? Like the best listening ear space in the house. I'll take it. I'll sit here. Thank you so much, Sophia. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening and being here with us. For those of us who have joined us a little bit late, don't worry. It's funny, when this first started, it was just me who could hear it, and I did feel a little bit like I was making it up, because everyone was like, no, before you all came, and now I feel very like vindicated. I was like, yeah, I can hear it. But it's fine, we can just, I don't know, I'm like, am I doing something? I'll just keep talking and hopefully that'll be fine. What to say? I feel quite happy that I can hear it though. You know, there's I don't know, if you grew up in a big city, outside corner shops by your school, they had these like horrible noises that only you could hear if you're a young person, and I can't hear them anymore. But I can hear this, so that's good. Oh, are we swapping? Use this one instead, okay. Oh, that is good. Can I put my other earring on? Yes. Oh, you know what? Did I orchestrate all of this? If you took any photos, darling, just delete them. God, everything is coming up. Bridget, hello. We've heard some amazing poetry. We're going to hear a little bit more, which is very exciting. But before, to sort of end, quite a silly moment. Maybe we should all. I'm a big fan of like breaths after poets, rather than like, you know, I just feel like we should, when I listen to poetry, I am very connected with myself and my body in a way that I really enjoy, which is why I love poetry so much. So I'm going to indulge me for a second, everyone. Think about Sophia's poetry. Think about something you got from it. Hold that. Take a deep breath. Breathe out. And we are ready for the next poet. Right, so our second poet today is going to be Leo Boix. He is a Latinx bilingual poet, translator and educator, born in Argentina, who lives and works in the UK. He is a recent fellow of the Complete Works Poetry, a national mentoring program aimed at poets from minority backgrounds, which has included just a who's who of poetry, including Kayo Chingonyi, who we're going to hear from in a second, Sarah Howe, Mona Arshi, Warsan Shure, amongst many, 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 many others. Please look up the program. It's a brilliant, brilliant thing. Leo's poems have been included in many anthologies, such as 10, Poets of the New Generation, Why Poetry from Verve Poetry Press. He is the co-director of Invisible Presence, an Arts Council England national scheme to nurture the new voices of Latinx writers in the UK. He is a board member of Magma Poetry, co-editor of its Resistencia issue showcasing the best Latin American Latinx writing, and an advisory board member of the Poetry Translation Centre in London. In 2019, he was the recipient of the Keats Shelley Prize, and he's also the author of Ballad of a Happy Immigrant, a book that I read last week and absolutely loved. Please can we give him a really warm welcome to the stage.
Thank you so much. I think, I'm going to read from here. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited. My book was published in June, and this is my first sort of face-to-face event. So I'm really excited to be here. Peregrination. I crossed the bridge. There was nothing. 1 cup of cold coffee, 1 coin from Argentina, an eyeball on a plate, my mother singing Me olvidé de vivir. I turn back, gather my things. Come here, look down at your own past. I thought about the festival and the main theme of storytelling, and in my book there are many stories that I'm telling, but one very sort of important one is the fact that I came from Argentina. I'm a migrant, I'm an immigrant from South America, And my ancestors were also migrants who left different countries, escaping war and famine. So in a way, it's a sort of a circle that sort of closes. And the next poem I'm going to read is a poem about a family member, a story that I found out quite recently, and it's called SS General Pueyrredón. Over the Mersey, a sulphurous yellow plume emerges. The clack of the docks, barrels on rolls lifted on ropes. A few dockers stand by, others in overalls busy at the cranes. Cask after cask of oil lowered down, bellowing steam giants, towers, stevedores, freight trains to be unloaded. The ringing, hammering stench of horses, cargo from all continents pouring in. The ship arrived from Buenos Aires via Tenerife. He disembarks, his leather bags next to him, a handwritten label, Capitán Boyce. He won't be returning home for another 2 years. In Liverpool, he asks for directions. Can help me, por favor? Looks at the leaden sky, takes a hackney cab, sees the Dee estuary dissolve in barges, the Albert Dock, the liver, Cunard buildings behind railings, the molten flow of people in hats. Everywhere, street craters, ghosts of Bleak Creek. He looks at all of this in awe. His ship, the SS General Pueyrredón, enthroned at the dock to be refitted. Derricks worship her steel carcass, Empress of the South. He takes lodgings on Water Street, smokes his Argentinian pipe, visits the Olympia Theatre, sends a telegram in Spanish to his wife and only son. Dear Amor, arrived safe here. City is bigger than I thought, badly damaged by the war. Nobody understands my bad English. People are cautious, polite. Some never heard of Argentina. They guess it's too far, if they guess at all. Here it rains every day. How is my Raulito? The crew ask after you both. Tell everyone I'm well. Love, tu esposo. Signs off all his letters with an R. Licks the new queen's posterior. Packed onto a tramway to the centre, he walks around in circles, takes his tea white, muy blanco at Grand Café Central, gets his ration cards, back to Birkenhead to his ship being loaded for her homecoming voyage. One evening, as he kills time, he notices a fortune teller sign. Goes in. You will live a short life. This will be your last trip. You will find love. He often dreams of home. Its gasolinas ablaze. He imagines being back in Patagonia, waiting for southern Wales to arrive. One evening, he meets a sailor in the Stoke Hotel. Tan skin and the flannels. They laugh to Almartino's songs. Gets drunk on his first stout. Rub hands under the waxed bench. Later, they sleep together. El Capitan's pencil moustache, a little brush, mouths alike. They clinch, press chest and groin and thigh, head against the tufted headboard, stained coarse sheets pulled under his pubic hairline. There are sailors from another century, stalwart captured on the daguerreotype, casually masculine, tender of heart. They meet every week in rented rooms, ties, shoes, white trousers, suspenders on the floor. The captain tells of South Atlantic, Ruano horses, cows of the Pampas, of Evita and General Perón. The lover of his childhood in a Scottish farm, his navy affairs. A smeared window overlooks the port. Pipe smoke clouds the room. They wash pits in the sink. Spend hours in darkness hooked together, smell as one. And when the captain talks of going home, the Scottish sailor dreams of following him to see his foreign land. For his wife, he buys a piano, a sewing machine, English dresses. For his son, a toy ship, leather shoes, a box of lead soldiers. Takes a photo of the city, sails back one morning of January 1953. His lover stands at the dock, sees the General Pueyrredón depart. So long, Raúl, so long. Turns round, curses the day they met. It takes him hours to walk back to his tiny room on Queen Square. Dock workers in caps arrive in search of work, stand on ropes. The tanker vanishes in the river. A V-line of geese across the quay. Thank you. The book is full of portraits of family members I met and some that I didn't. And this poem is a portrait of my father, who died very shortly after I finished this manuscript. Eucalyptus. After years of searching, I find my father standing by the old tree he'd pruned every spring to grow leafy before the sweltering heat of our subtropical summer. "Who's there?" he asks. "I'm your son, Dad, tu hijo. Your first wife's dead, like you. We buried her south of Buenos Aires." "You sure?" he inquires, a dirty mate gourd in his tarred hands. "You are interred somewhere north of the General Paz motorway." He nods, sips his sweet drink, gives me a tangerine, then crosses the empty patio to his unkept tool shed, handsaws, nails getting rustier. I leave by the yard door. He whistles from his world through the dream where the tree grows taller every time I look back. So this is another portrait, and this is a portrait of my grandfather, who wasn't a sea captain. He taught me about books, and he had a really tough life. Portrait of my grandfather with scissors. Behind the counter in a shop in Buenos Aires, he unrolls fabric rolls, cuts the silks, carries boxes of pearl buttons for women in frock, asking for bargains, some gangas, new stock. He once owned his own shop, a haberdashery that went bust under Juan Perón's presidency. Later, he was hired as a junior shop assistant, brought with him his prized pair of scissors. Charms lady clients with stories, cracks jokes, reads borrowed books on his way back to his crammed house in Quilmes, escapes to distant places, worldly Paris, ancient Egypt, the Georgia plantations during the Civil War, Roman London, the conquest of El Salvador, dreams of glowing citadels in the Orient, musketeers' escapades, deadly moats of Kent, while seated among sleepy workers, trabajadores, returning to their bored wives and the chores. This poem came out of a dream. I had a dream that I was in a sort of Noah's Ark, traveling with all my family, all my ancestors, all the migrants, my great-great-great-grandparents, grandparents and my parents, everyone in one ship going from port to port. Immigrant's boat. The ship that brought me had lost its course, and instead of stopping at every sunny harbour, greeted by joyful lighthouse, kept on going from one continent to the next. A promising southern northern sky, towards the immensity of the open seas, we passed many coasts, archipelagos. Passengers gather to look, gossiping in many dialects, Catalan, Sicilian, Basque. Yet every time the courtesy flag was raised, to dock and land, at last to disembark, oh, again, adieu. Engines roar, full speed astern, foam surged behind. The ship's Janus figurehead that rocked back and forth would try to drop anchor, its periscope filtering such luminous terra firma, yet kept going, a somnambulist with no walls to bash into. Despairing, the second, third-class passengers, their high hopes dashed, asked in low tones among themselves why their bad luck kept following them from home. At high sea, the sound of crashing sea mammals trailing, a lone whale closing in as blue icebergs surfaced, no idle sunbathers on the muted deck. I, frozen in time, watched hungry seagulls flying low, saw tempest quickly form, the distant warships ready for yet another war, as purposes looked on. How far yet to go? The ship continued, a floating carcass adrift, aimless, fleeing famine, onslaughts, outbreaks. The miseries that were the siren call to the earlier 20th century exodus. The immigrants of the ship that brought me never get off. We drift together. There among them, my great-aunt Gracia, the one with a knotted index, incessantly knitting my socks. She was the one born abroad, baptized by the head cook by the grace of God, witnessed by Capitan Raúl, my paternal grandfather, he who got to see almost all the big cities, Liverpool, New York, St. Petersburg, Rio Gallegos. He took the ship's wheel but didn't know the course. Also on board my great-grandparents, Ramon, his sick wife Maria, the cursed Sicilian peasants from San Mauro de Castelverde. Their 9 children around, dressed in patched black, the elders telling Cosa Nostra jokes, how they had to live with only a little soup, barely a thing to sow on thin, war-torn soil. There was also Atilano, Abuelo's short-lived father, his thin moustache, his tattered Spanish red guitar made at famed Zamora, his felt hat, some bread, his pile of worn-out bags. On board, distant cousins, great uncles, drifters, blood of my own blood, a line as thinly stretched as the flimsy boat, somehow kept afloat, but erring, unmoored. And My final poem is the title poem of the book, Ballad of a Happy Immigrant. In the beginning, there was a garden and a boy who counted ants, dug for bulbs. All this he enjoyed. Come back a man or never come. Father greased the pew show, his blasting radio of 80s techno on. Learn, one day you'll need to know. Come back a man or never come. The spaniel dog under the kitchen table, the endless heat, the dusty sparrows on hanging cables. Come back a man or never come. Mother's palm leaf dresses, her sandals, the day she left they took her things. I lit a candle. Come back a man or never come. Father dressed younger and then remarried after a loved sweet wife quickly buried. Come back a man or never come. We moved 2 times from south to north. Some things we took, some we forgot. Come back a man or never come. My sisters shared a fuchsia room, their ploys. I found a corner where I hid my joys. Come back a man or never come. I went on trains to school and back. At home the fights, burned steaks, news cracks. Come back a man or never come. The night I left, I gave some clues. Look out for me, my ties, my shoes. Come back a man or never come. The shared old flat in Naysborough Court, 6 a room, a kitchenette, my home of sorts. Come back a man or never come. My lousy English, searched out for words, though found I still could communicate with birds. Come back a man or never come. I met very few men, went out to clubs. Some were smarter than others, and one night at the NFT, I met the artist. Come back a man or never come. The daily trips to Hampstead Heath, late coffees in Soho, we kissed in Russell Square. A builder shouted, "You too, homos." Come back a man or never come. We moved together by the flower market. Our tiny flat on Columbia Road, a new life had started. Come back a man or never come. Long distance phone calls, Dad and his orchids, his health, his lungs, the chats more morbid. Come back a man or never come. I nurse him a week, his bloody coughs, and he died as my London flight took off. Come back a man or never come. By the sea we found some peace. You drew till late, I planted dwarf trees. Come back a man or never come. Now I swim and swim, come sun or hail, the sea, my friend, my foe, is holy grail. Come back a man or never come. And if they ask, is this your home? I say, well, yes. At least I hope. Thank you very much. Thank you.
No. Thank you very much, Leo. Round of applause. That was lovely. We are going to move to our final poet of the evening. You still with me? Yes, lots of nods and some yeses, some firm yeses. That was good. I feel like my mind is just whirring with lots of poetry, which is nice because I'm still very much getting used to the new world of like not putting in a Zoom link to watch poetry that I got really used to. Also wasn't used to it, but that is probably a story for another day. I'm going to do another breath, and then we're going to move on swiftly to our third and final poet of the evening. We good? Okay. Think of Leo's poems. Think of something from them. Remember a line or a word or an image. Keep that in your head. Keep it in your heart. Take a deep breath in. And breathe it out. It's really nice watching you all do that. I feel very indulged. It's wonderful. Our third and final poet for this evening is Kayo Chingonyi. I'm going to read this. He was born in Zambia in 1987 and moved to the UK at the age of 6. He is the author of 2 pamphlets and a fellow of the Complete Works programme. In 2012, he was awarded a Geoffrey Dermer Prize and was associate poet at the Institute of Contemporary Arts in 2015. His first 4-length collection, Kumakanda, won the Dylan Thomas Prize and a Somerset Maugham Award and was shortlisted for the Costa Poetry Prize. It was also shortlisted for the Seamus Heaney Centre First Poetry Collection Prize, the Ted Hughes Award for New Work in Poetry, the Roehampton Poetry Prize and the Jalak Prize. Kayo is a Burgess Fellow at the Centre for New Writing, University of Manchester, and an Associate Poet at the ICA in London. He has performed his work at festivals and events around the world, is the poetry editor for the White Review, the Assistant Professor of Creative Writing at Durham University. He's going to be reading from his new poetry collection, A Blood Condition. I have known poet Kayo a very, very long time and have been instructed not to ad-lib. But all I will say is I would argue there is no one else in this room, maybe in this city, who knows more about both poetry and whiskey than Kayo. Please give him a big, warm round of applause as he comes to the stage.
Hello, everyone. Firstly, thank you for joining us when you could be in Tiger Tiger dancing to budget reggaeton. I mean, you still could be. The night is young.
It's
Yeah.
not too late.
So, yeah, it's really lovely to be here. I'm gonna sit because I love to be sort of louche and literary in this way, but I may stand as well. Who knows? Yeah, it's really lovely to be here. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, Leo. It was really lovely to hear the poems out loud that I had read on the page so many times. I'm going to start by reading a poem which is a love poem to the corner of East London, although Essex, if you want to get technical, although Essex ain't really claiming us neither, but anyway, we won't get into that. I don't even live there no more. I live in Leeds, but I came down on the train with a bunch of West Ham supporters, so it was like growing up all over again. Come on, you Irons. It was long. Anyway, this is a poem called Blues. It's a poem that I wrote in celebration of some of the MCs I grew up with, both personally and in terms of people I was listening to. And it just so happened that one of the MCs I grew up with, Prodigy from Mobb Deep, he died a few years after one of the other MCs I grew up with, who was called Hasty, Carl Samuel, who was the person in our friendship circle who had the most kind of creative energy, I suppose. He always had the bars everybody memorized, and some of his bars are in this. So you just have to imagine you're outside a fish and chip shop in the centre of Barking and Dagenham, a little bit close to what was once Hawthorne Way but has now been knocked down. Some sort of Olympic swimming pool is there now, but we won't go into that. You're standing on the only patch of grass, there's a group of you, and people are cussing each other in rhyming format while someone beatboxes quietly. And that's the setting. Another scribe of black trauma has passed from this life into the spirit world, or nothingness, depending on how much store you set by Nietzsche. Apt that the arch laureate of nihilism comes to mind when I think of Prodigy, old before his time as I was old before mine. We passed a zoot road with torquedor finesse round a circle in Barking before it had a health spa. One of our number was confined these times to his room by shame, a death of some kind because, lying under a sky pockmarked with stars, he asked his girlfriend why she was so quiet. When Hasty walked or fell in front of the lorry, did he pass away if I can still hear him going back to back with K-Star and raps? If I think of him standing shoulder to shoulder with Prodigy in a circle of dead MCs, screwing up his face, singing, "Listen up, I'm so raw. You know, I'm MC Hasty and I'm on tour. When I spit my lyrics, them I shout more. When I give you more, the people them will be so sore." In the year of our Lord 2003, Tox was still passing himself off as Little Dizzy, though Tox was by then closer in height to Jamackabee. After Lord of the Mics dropped, the gas was such it just took a younger but in a half-decent beatbox for the clash to start. Everyone played their part, from the hype men spitting lines back like a space echo, to those standing outside the cipher but close enough to cuss the vanquished when a gap opened for him to walk in the unforgiving light of mediocrity. This was before anyone in our circle had been stabbed or shifted. Some had shouldered a wooden box, but none of us understood the cost of the shanks and skengs in our lyrics. If we knew these days as halcyon is hard to say. The mind is some next ends. We wouldn't have been caught dead slipping, convinced as we were the patch of grass beside the golden fish was big enough to constitute a world. I'm going to read this poem because I was asked to by my esteemed colleague, Bridget Minimal, who I have indeed known for a long time, which we shan't go into now. And I am not... anyway, I'm not going to go into it. That's what I'm not going to do. But yeah, it's been wonderful to see such a flourishing of poetry in this city, and to be back in it with you all this evening is wonderful, joyful. But not just in this city, like the whole country, to have so many people engaged with poetry is a wonderful thing. For those of us who've been doing it since our teens, when our friends were not like really understanding what we were doing. But they understand now, innit? This is called Postcard from the Showbrooks, which is another poem of place. But it's set in a particular part of Leeds. Yeah, if you pull up there, likely you'll find me, but don't do no stalkerish nonsense. Just wave and keep it moving. We can chat as well, but listen. Anyway, Postcard from the Showbrooks. Ciroc bottles and nitrous canisters, far cry from dance floors and nightclub banisters, the youngers sing blessings on blessings on blessings, pouring a sip for departed brethrens lost to the brief imposition of blades or jailhouse, or another city's grey skyline, better because of its distance. Hitting the books or freestyling fictions to big up their chests, they ride for their ends on quad bikes and push bikes, this circle of friends. In this corner of your corner of the world, Tony, that scrap of contested land curled in your books, facing the streets, chiaroscuro, I look on, lost in this writing bureau, 50-year emblem from Sutcliffe and Son, late thread in the fabric of Todmorden. The Tony I mentioned in the poem is Tony Harrison, who writes these 16-line sonnets, Meredithian sonnets, which I kind of riffed on in this book a little bit. Because I started thinking like 16 lines, 16 bars, and I got into a little circular, poetic, formal conversation with myself. And I thought I would share this poem with you as well, which is kind of when I left London, I wrote this poem. Yeah, kind of thinking about some of the things I love. The kind of bittersweet relationship I have with the place, I guess, but it's also not specific to London so much as like huge multinational cities, I suppose. But yeah, it's nowhere like home, innit? 16 bars for the bits. The old men who meet at the same time each evening. The youngers get bladdered and stagger the heaving, the chatter of pigeons emboldened while feeding in towers that balance at heights beyond reason. A beacon for dreamers and schemers and heathens. You could find angels behaving like demons in ends where the rents seem to change with the seasons, and murder rates rise when the temperature's peaking. Friends changing tack interrupted while speaking. Students in packs only back for the weekend. The steadfast who waited and think about leaving. The homeless in parks making bargains with breathing. The lights in the dark guide you home and you're sleeping, or tossing and turning, or scratching and wheezing, or thinking all night through the secrets you're keeping. And all this can come in the space of an evening. I want to read this poem and maybe a couple more. I write quite short poems, so I'll let you know this is a 2-pager, but it's still kind of short. I wrote this poem for my wife. It's funny when you say that, like it's very funny. We've been married for 3 years, and like she doesn't really go in for the like wife, husband lingo until it's like a serious situation and like someone's like calling trying to chat nonsense and she's like, actually I'm here with my husband. Like even if you don't have a wife, don't have a husband, none of that, just drop it when you're complaining about something. It's effective. I'm calling on behalf of my wife. Serious, innit? But yeah, we're not really like that. This is a poem I wrote for her because she loves the sea, and it was her birthday recently. And close to her birthday, I try and take her to somewhere where there's like a coast. I have not yet succeeded, but I will. Arguments in favor of the sea. Day clean. Cold day, 1 week after we wed, the woman I love inching in to swim. Water passing over stones sounds like my auntie, weaving family history as if she sat at a loom. 4 years ago, with a man I look like who looks like me. Rental bikes, shoreline promenade, denim shirt billowing, the presence of mind to take a picture. Chastising wind, knuckles raw in that first Newcastle winter. Turning to watch the mist clip the top of Table Mountain, 2 years out of university with no job but this wandering to speak in far-off rooms. Waterlogged shore road to Kilcreggan, tugboats performing their routine. The switch up, 3 minutes 30 seconds into Nights by Frank Ocean. That October, everything turned in such small moments. Proposals of marriage had become our running joke. That day we returned to the operative words. The tall ships, their figures so prominent in remembrance, it doesn't matter whether I saw them or not. Swing seat in front of a shop selling gelato and agua frescas. Toes brushing sand. Long subway ride. Pensioners trying to slow down time at some distance. Screams from a 100-year-old roller coaster. Sea spray. I'll finish with this poem. Thank you for listening. Yeah, it's been so joyful to be here. I wanted to read the poem which kind of connects to the figure on the cover of the book, this is an image from Toyin Oji Odutola, which is like super beautiful. I couldn't believe that she agreed to let me have it for the cover. She's one of my favorite artists. But when I saw this, I saw, I guess, a female presenting person facing the other way, like indignantly, resolutely, defiantly. And I thought about how we try and hold on to the dead in our grieving, writing, in our grief. And I wrote this poem for my mum, who died 20 years ago, 21 years ago. It's called Guys and St. Thomas's. Thank you again for listening. When I'm here in a particular character of mind, any woman of a certain height, hair plaited neat to meet the working day, becomes my mother in that year of early mornings she worked at GDRU, close to this stretch of the river, close to Hayes Galleria, the aquarium that's still here, though she is not, to walk with me as we scrutinize tropical fish, laughing in the uncomplicated manner that comes of understanding, and after, a bankside stroll. A cart proprietor advertises wares, varieties of ice cream. It's 1999, my last summer as native this side of the river, where the water brings pilgrims in search of a cure. For long hours, bad coffee, friends always catching up and rarely giving conversation its due. How can I set down the passage of time? Who knew a face becomes less and less distinct the longer it no longer exists? How to lift this mist from my eyes that I might see this concrete and glass for what it is and stop writing my mother into it. That I might let her walk away, becoming smaller and smaller until she disappears. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can we give another massive round of applause for all three of our amazing poets who have been up here this evening? Sophia Thakur, Leo Boix, Kayo Chingonyi. You can get their books here if you would like, and they'll be signing them literally outside. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope that you have enjoyed it too. We've overrun a little bit, I'm sorry, but poetry, I was trying to think of a good pun, I can't. Poetry waits for no man, I don't know. But yeah, I hope that you have gained as much. I know you have gained as much from tonight as I have. We're going to do one last breath, and then we're going to let you go. Even though I feel like we should have done like a big high, but actually no, because it was quite nice, wasn't it? So yeah, think of something Kayo said and hold it close and keep it here, and yeah, take it with you for the rest of the night, the rest of the weekend. Take a deep breath in, feel the bodies all around you. Take a deep breath out, look around. There's all these people, you've shared this moment with them, it's been really nice. Have a good night.